Hi everyone, thank you for joining me. My name is Michelle Bakels. I'm a program director at G2I, and today I would like to share with you my experiment with meditation through code. So, to give a bit of a background on where this came from, this is an experiment that I started from the Florida Entrepreneurs Club 10 by 10 writing challenge. And in this writing challenge, we were asked to write 10 articles in 10 days. And thinking about what I wanted to create or write about was kind of hard, but I started thinking about if it was possible to use code as a form of meditation for developers. And instead of writing 10 articles in 10 days, I ended up writing 10 tiny software programs and then writing 10 articles about those experiences over 10 days. So the idea of this experiment was that I wanted to see if it was possible to meditate through code. And if it was, could this help us become healthier, happier, more empathetic, and emotionally intelligent developers? So because I have a background in both art history and computer science, a lot of the kind of ideation process and where I came up with how I wanted to approach this came from actually thinking about art and the purpose of art. So how it was originally used, what we use it for today, is the purpose tied to the tool, and could we achieve these goals without the tool? So thinking about how it was originally used, I think generally speaking, most art early on was to depict something very literally, either a person, a place, a time, an event, a story, etc. But as the viewer, we were able to look at this image and we were able to understand what was happening. We were maybe able to learn something new or gain new information or perspective, but it was descriptive, it was literal, it was something that we were meant to be able to understand as a viewer. Later down the road, the camera was invented. And once the camera was invented, it sort of freed the artist from this kind of responsibility or obligation to record and document everything exactly as it is. And from this moment, we have new periods of art pop up, such as Impressionism, Expressionism, Abstract Expressionism, and so on and so forth. So we can see that over time, the use of art has definitely transformed a lot to the point where today, actually, it's a question that's kind of almost impossible to answer. What is art? It's used in so many different ways and for so many different purposes that it's quite difficult to define. So moving on to the third question, is the purpose tied to the tool? And to answer this, I kind of compared a couple of different pieces of artwork. Here we have the School of Athens by Raphael, and then below we have another painting, which is this typical paint splatter work by Jackson Pollock. And for all intents and purposes, we'll say that they're essentially the same medium. They're both paintings, even though different kind of paint, but both paintings. And the purpose of the work above is to depict this scene for the viewer of Plato and Aristotle having a conversation as they walk through this room surrounded by a lot of other prominent philosophers. And as the viewer, every figure in here provides some sort of context or meaning. It helps deliver an overall message. And if anything was changed in this painting, it would change our interpretation. It may even completely change the purpose or message of what the artist was trying to get across. So everything here has to be exactly as it is for the purpose to basically remain the same. However, below, this is, this paint splatter canvas that Pollock makes is meant to be an expression of his own emotions. So the purpose of this artwork is for Pollock to express himself. And as soon as he's done slinging paint at this canvas, the purpose has been fulfilled. And it truly has nothing to do with the viewer. The viewer's interpretation doesn't affect the purpose of this at all. And in fact, these paint splatters could pretty much be in many different forms and land on the canvas in many different ways and have that purpose still essentially be the same. So the difference here, aside from just generally how these look when speaking about purpose and who this serves above, this serves the viewer and tells us a message. And below, this serves the creator as a form of emotional expression. So same medium, but very different use cases and very different meanings. So can we achieve these goals without the tool? Of course we can. We can express ourselves in many different ways. It doesn't have to be paint splatters. And the image above, the School of Athens, could have been created in different mediums. So yeah, we could achieve these without necessarily using paint, like that's used here. So these kinds of questions kind of got me thinking about other different tools, how these same questions apply to other forms of creation, and of course, that includes code. So thinking about how code was originally used, I think all of us are familiar with Ada Lovelace's first algorithm that she used for mathematical computation, and for the early part of the history of computing. In general, it was focused on math and science and statistics. And now, in modern usage, we have a lot of other ways that we use code. We can use it to help promote our startups. We can use it to find people in our area to meet up with. We can use it to promote ourselves, create profiles of ourselves to help us get jobs. We use it in all of our household appliances. So there's tons of different ways that we use code today. So of course that has transformed over time. Now, is the purpose tied to the tool? This question was a little bit trickier because I think even between 1883 and today, programming has been predominantly focused on the result, on the output, what you get from the program, how the user can interact with this software or whatever was created. So when we're answering what is the purpose, is the purpose tied to the tool in the same context as the previous slide, that one is kind of hard to answer. So I just kept thinking about that a little bit more. And could we achieve these goals without the tool? I think in general, yes, now we're kind of coming to the point where we have no code tools. You don't have to be a software developer to create some sort of website or program. We're not necessarily interacting directly with the code in order to create something that you can use. So continuing down the rabbit hole, it started also getting me thinking about meditation and flow state and mindfulness. So I don't think that a lot of developers would say that they meditate while they work. However, there is this idea of the flow state that we are definitely all familiar with. And it's this state of mind that we really aim to access because we feel like we're really present in our work, we're really productive, and we get a lot done when we're in this flow state. So meditation, mindfulness, and flow state are actually all very similar in that they encourage us to become very present in the moment. And even Headspace describes flow state as a very active, moving meditation. So whether we really realize it or not, when we are in that flow state, it is a sort of meditation. And meditation has a lot of benefits for us. It can make us happier. It can provide a stronger sense of clarity. It can help us reduce stress, worry, self-doubt. So, of course, all of this and so much more kind of came together to, again, ask the question, could we use code to meditate? Can we disassociate code with always serving an end result or a product or a user? And could we use code to serve us as the creator and developer while we're writing it, to use it as something that fulfills us, like a form of expression or a form of meditation? So at this point, I kind of came to the conclusion, like, why not? So let's just try. So as I was creating this experiment, I came up with measurements for success. What does success look like and what does it not look like? So I wanted to make sure that I was able to focus my mind in the right places so that I was able to really see if this would work. So what success is not concerned with, anything that truly serves the end goal. So viability, UI, UX, good code or clean code. I wasn't going to be concerned with best practices or the overall finished product. However, what I did want to concern myself with is whether or not I could meditate or focus, if I could connect with a feeling or idea. I wanted to connect with the process, of course, and be in the moment and be able to express myself. So once I kind of understood what this would likely look like, I came up with Coding With, which was the overall project that housed every program for every day. So these were the 10 themes that I came up with for the 10 days. So I had intention, joy, fairness, thoughtfulness, kindness, curiosity, bravery, sisterhood, love, and gratitude. So for the first day being intention, the program that I created was this sort of website that would house every program and hold a placeholder card, essentially saying that like I intend to complete this challenge on this day. And as far as being able to meditate while I worked on this, I would say that I wasn't really successful. Being the first day, I'm not really sure I totally understood exactly what I was trying to do or how I wanted to do it. It really did feel more or less like building any other website, even though it was kind of fun and exciting. So even though it wasn't really great success as far as meditating while I was building something, it did give me something to think about later, like how am I going to kind of access this meditative state while I build something. So in any case, day 2 was Coding with Joy. And so I thought of something that brings me, the most joy, and that's my dogs. And so I created this app where you could write notes to your pet, telling them basically how much you love them and why. So this one was really fun. There were definitely some really fun, silly moments where I was really connecting with that feeling of joyfulness. I was creating this kind of ridiculous background, this border, writing this code that no one will ever pay me to write. So kind of having fun, creating something for myself. However, I know that CSS is not exactly my strong suit, so there were moments where I was trying to make something look better or look right, and it just really wasn't coming together, so I backslid into those moments of frustration. And at some point, I kind of hit this wall, and I was like, oh my God, I have 8 more days of this. What did I agree with? Kind of having that moment of panic, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And once I realized, okay, what I'm feeling right now is very different than joy, it gave me this moment to reflect, okay, where did I lose that connection? Just like meditation, your mind can begin to wander, but once it wanders and you notice that it's wandered, you just come back to that present moment and just continue. So here, same thing. I realized that I was starting to get frustrated, so I wanted to figure out why. And I think it was because I was becoming too future focused. I was thinking about how, people were going to see these programs and they were, maybe they might think oh, wow, she's a really bad developer. Her code is terrible. Or what is she trying to do with code meditate? This isn't the purpose of this. I was thinking of all of these judgments that people would put on me. And I lost focus of the fact that this whole experiment was supposed to be for my own personal enjoyment and my own personal benefit. So I started being able to kind of catch those budding negative emotions earlier, which was good for, kind of keeping and maintaining a better state of mind while I was working. And of course, everything that I worried about was for nothing. Actually, a lot of people ended up really liking this program. They took screenshots of the notes that they wrote to their pets and sent them to me. And even Dr. Shea here posted it on his Instagram account. People were sharing it on LinkedIn and Twitter. So it actually went pretty well. And one of the things that I noted is that the program that I had the most fun creating, my friends also had the most fun using. So that was just something to think about. Like, does the experience of the developer while they're creating something come through in some way to the user once they have that program in their hands? So just something to think about, especially as developer experience is becoming more and more adopted in the industry. So, skipping over to day 5, this is coding with kindness. And I would say it's definitely the most successful of all 10 days as far as really locking in to a meditative state while I was coding and really connecting with the emotion and the intention of the program. So, this one I collaborated with Carla Cadero on. And Carla is just one of the kindest people that I've ever met. And we had this conversation over a happy hour about what it means to be kind and how do you exhibit kindness. Um, so as we were trying to come up with an idea for the program for this day, Carla suggested a way that we can practice kindness towards ourselves. So I created this meditation app where every day of the week you had a different affirmation that you could meditate on. That would essentially be a form of self-kindness. And Carla wrote all of the affirmations for this, and I think that they're beautiful. And when I was working on this, I just felt a really, really deep connection with the theme. It was pretty overwhelming at times. As strange as it sounds, there were definitely some moments where I kind of teared up a little bit, got a little bit emotional. And yeah, as odd as that might sound, that code kind of brings you to that state of mind. That was the moment where I really thought like, wow, okay, this actually is possible. Like, you can actually connect with an emotion while you're creating something in the same way that you can connect with an emotion while you're painting or drawing and doing these kinds of things. Code is just another one of these mediums. And that was really exciting for me. I feel like this day was kind of a breakthrough. And it was also the program from the collection that got used the most, which was really interesting. Again, it's not about the end user, but just really unexpected to see people still, message me today like, oh, I used your app when I was getting really frustrated at work the other day. And yeah, so I'm just glad that people are finding this helpful too. And it was something that I really loved making as well. The last one I'm going to share is coding with curiosity. So this is where we kind of bridged into the real world. And I wasn't expecting to make this skill trading app for coding with curiosity, but still, that's what ended up happening anyway. So on this day, I ended up at 1909 to help come up with an idea of a way to create essentially, yeah, like a skill trading app for the members of a creator community that I'm a part of. And what this would do, would it provide kind of like this cross between a task board and Venmo that allows our members to, do work for other members with this idea of getting further together and it'll come back to you. So we had a lot of discussion around the curiosity of the human mind and incentive and goodwill. And then, of course, this app came out of all of that. And as far as working on this in the 1909 that day, it was a little bit challenging because I was kind of in a busy environment. However, it did lend an opportunity to kind of dig in deeper into that practice and focus on the present moment. So I think it was a good opportunity for growth. And this is the program that I actually get to practice meditation through code with the most because it became a proof of concept for a larger community project. We now have kind of an ecosystem of apps for our members. So I get to still work on this skill trading app and a couple of others that tie me back to this day and this like exploratory moment and these, conversations around mind and incentive. So in any case, after the 10 days, I definitely had a few takeaways, of course. So, four of the main takeaways for me is one, collaborating with non technical people provides some of the most unique ideas. About half of the programs that I built, I actually ideated with other people on. And yeah, some were technical, some weren't. Some didn't have anything to do with tech at all. However, I think just that different experience and background helped to kind of fill in my ideas and my understanding, and what I thought about some of these themes in order to provide a better position and context for creating interesting programs for this challenge. Number two, like traditional meditation, greater success requires greater practice. So continue practicing, even if you feel like you're not doing well or you're not getting it, because progress is really gradual. Sometimes it's forward, sometimes it's a little bit backward. And sometimes you may not notice it at all. However, if you just keep sticking with it and you keep dedicating yourself to being in this present moment, you'll start to notice the more minute shifts in your emotion while you're working. And I think that this is really cool and important for us because we'll be able to notice those moments of frustration and irritability, like kind of creeping in earlier as we're working, so we can stop and make the decision. All right, I can feel myself going down this path right now. I'll either step away or I will, try and refocus my mind, or I'll switch to something else until I come back for this. And so being able to recognize this, I think, can be very beneficial for seeing the onset of kind of like hitting a wall or burnout, and hopefully help us kind of prevent those things from happening. Three, tiny programs quickly reveal your true strengths and weaknesses. So building super, super small programs, things that you have to get done by the end of the day, really put your estimation and velocity into perspective. So I became really aware with the things that I could do really quickly or the things that would take me a little bit longer. So I realized like anything React and JavaScript, I could do pretty fast. However, when it came to styling in CSS, that's where I would slow down the most. So this is where I really needed to work on my skills and focus on getting better at those things. Also, I was able to take this understanding, of course, back to work, where I was able to make better estimations on what I was able to do during a certain period of time, which of course led to, a better expectation between, myself and client, or myself and my team, of like what I was able to get done in a certain amount of time. So that was a really beneficial takeaway for me. And then last, share your work, even if it's unrefined or imperfect. People were really understanding that I was experimenting, and I think that they were really happy just to be a part of it. And then, of course, I was really surprised that there were a lot of programs that really resonated with people and that they really connected with. And then definitely unexpected when a few developers reached out to me saying that they wanted to also try meditating through code. So I was just really happy with kind of how the whole project was received, and that a lot of my worry and anxiety around sharing this was kind of all for nothing. So overall, TLDR, I would say, just make fun, silly, imperfect things and reimagine how you use code, and see if you can create these experiments that can help you connect deeper with yourself and with the people around you. Because we have this great skill set and we have this great tool for creativity, and it doesn't always have to be used for a product. It doesn't always have to be used for a company. We can use this skill set and this tool for ourselves. and kind of to serve us through the creation process. So I would just say be creative, and I would encourage everyone to try this practice of meditating through code. So with that said, thank you everyone for joining me today and for hearing my story about my experiment with meditating through code. Thank you.
And thank you, Michelle. That was a very inspiring talk. And I think probably the first question on many people's minds is, what inspired you to include an ASL interpreter in your video?
Thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah, so I've been starting to give talks a little bit more frequently, and it's something that I consider now, an essential part of my talk. There's a couple of things. So first of all, the first conference talk I ever gave, I gave it to a room of about 4 people. 3 of who were like not really interested, and 1 who was really interested in what I was talking about. And I didn't realize she was deaf, and she didn't know what I was saying the entire time. And there was no interpreter in the room. And since it was live, there wasn't any captioning. And I didn't make like good slides that had a lot of text on them. And so that was one moment that like really opened my eyes to accessibility when we have these tech conversations and share information. And then on top of that, I met an incredible woman, Beth Wagmeister, who was the interpreter in that talk. And she's done a lot of interpreting for our community down in South Florida for the 1909 and Tech Up South Florida. And she's taught us a lot about accessibility, and she's our go-to on ASL. And at this point, like all the conversations I've had with her, it's like obvious, like we use ASL for everything that we put on down there with her. And so, yeah, it's just something that is part of my talks now.
Oh, that's awesome. So a quick question now, you built all these programs in a few hours each. Was there a specific tech stack that you used?
Yeah, so I first started off with just JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. However, like in the interest of working more quickly and the interest of like doing things that I knew better, I just started building like the later projects using React, because going from React for years back to pure vanilla JavaScript caused like a lot of like, oh wait, I can't remember. And it was like more frustration than it was worse. So maybe React was a little bit over engineering for it, but it helped go a little bit smoother because I already knew it. And then just using like really simple like deployment technologies, like I used Firebase for these applications, but one that I've really come to love recently that I probably would have gone back and used for these two is Vercel. So just like these tools with like great developer experiences helped move quickly too.
Very cool. And we only have a couple of seconds left, so I'm going to ask you, what kind of dogs do you have?
Australian Shepherds.
How many?
2.
2 Australian Shepherds. All right. And with that, we are going to hand the stage over to Romello Goodman, who needs you to create with code.